So the past couple days I've been trying to just clean up this 200 4R right behind me. It was absolutely filthy. It's still really dirty, but it's came a long way. I've been using just a universal degreaser on it, you know, mild detergent, and a wire brush. So the OZ Code 200 4Rs, they came in the 83 and 4 Herstolds and 85 442. This one was out of an 85 442. Man, that's dirty. So this seal is probably the hardest one to get to, just because you kind of have it in an enclosure. I'd rather get the hardest one done first and then just work on with and just move on to the rest. There's probably a better way of doing this, but I've just used punches and a hammer before. There we go. There's one. I think this one's been replaced before. It's coming. There we go. Dipstick tube just comes out. Nothing special there. God, this one's like really, you can tell like oil has really gotten to that one, just how mushy it is. If you ever get like transmission fluid on, you know, actual rubber, like you want to keep it off like your cooling hoses, your engine hoses, because it'll just make them swell. Now normally I would go ahead and replace the TV cable also, but I mean this one seems like it's been working fine for me, so I'm not gonna replace it. Not just yet anyways. Oh, grommet stayed in there. Oh wow, this one's all busted. This one might fall in the pan. That ain't good. Yeah, this one definitely needs to be replaced. That's why you do stuff like this. I'm going to give a quick rundown of the gaskets I'm about to install. Front, that's the front, that's the rear seal, dipstick, TV cable. I got the new filter. I'm going to go ahead and replace it. I mean, the filter that's in the transmission now, it's not old, but I mean, I replaced it not that long ago, but I'll go ahead and replace it again. But make sure when you get a filter, you got that gasket on it too. The pan gasket, it's hanging up right here, just so it's out of the way. Anytime I get a gasket, I always be sure I ask for a cork gasket. I've had the least problems with the cork gaskets. I think they make them in rubber and other composite material. As far as other gaskets, I'm not going to replace. The servo cover, it's going to have an O-ring inside of it. It doesn't seem like it's been a problem though. I'm not too worried about that. And also the actual gasket for the pump, I'm not going to pull the pump to replace that gasket. Now would be a good time to also look at this little O-ring right here. I believe that's for your torque converter clutch. I could be wrong, but you want to make sure it's, you know, at least there. I mean, of course this one's it's old, it's shrunk a little bit, but it's there at least. I mean, if this transmission was going to be rebuilt, you'd want to replace all of it. Same with that. This whole area, I don't know what's up with it, but it looks really, I don't know what it almost looks like electrolysis or something got to it, but I digress. I'm going to go ahead and start hammering. I'm going to wipe off these mating surfaces in here, and then I'll start hammering in the seals, and then I'll go ahead and put in the TV cable and dipstick. That's good enough. I'm just installing these dry. I'm not using petroleum jelly or oil or nothing. Just make sure it's cleaned up and then just install them. That's good. I'm going to put this grommet in first. I'm using a little bit of petroleum jelly just to kind of help get it lubricated. Get it put in. And also lube this up too. Hopefully this will go in a lot easier with that gasket installed first. Oh yeah, much better. Then what I like to do, take the TV cable, make sure it's springing back, because I'll assure you that it's connected in here still. I even hear it. And we'll even look at it too when this pan comes off. You'll even see that it's still connected. Now is also a good time to take this bolt, since it's really fine thread. Sometimes I go pretty liberal with anti-seize. That's only really because I have so much of it. But go ahead and put your anti-seize on. Now's the perfect time to do that. You don't need to crank down on this. As far as our dipstick tube goes, you know how to put those in. We're just going to put this in for now. We're just going to put it in. And just so it's done, again, we're going to take some petroleum jelly. Put it in there. There. Now we can move on to the pan side. So after making a complete mess, I got the transmission on the ground. Sometimes these turn right off, sometimes they don't. There we are. Right down in this bore, you want to take that gasket out. Even if that gasket's good, you don't want to put two gaskets in there or anything like that. You just want to install the one single gasket. You can just use like a pick or a screwdriver to get that out, but you want to be really careful you don't scratch the bore. Sometimes it's kind of the inevitable that you're going to put a little bit of a gouge in it, but just really try not to. So I'm going to go ahead and get that extracted. Oh yeah, right there you can see OZ. Looks like it says OZ8. You always want to look for these numbers or letters. You always want to look for that code. Here's our lever. You can also make sure that's still engaged. Yeah, it looks like it's engaged still. It's kind of hard to see, but I can see it down in there that it is. But sometimes they have another code on this side of the valve body. Not always. So I'm going to go ahead and get this cleaned up. I'm going to get the pan cleaned up a little bit too. I'll get that gasket out, and pretty much, I mean, you just put everything back together in the reverse order. I can't really talk. So, all right. There we go. Be really careful not to scratch anything up. There, I did that with one-handed too. I'm proud of myself. And also make sure no debris dropped in there. Make sure the gasket's intact. Make sure no chunks fell off, because the last thing you want is any of that going through your pump. Now would be a good time to also replace your lockup solenoid, because more than likely yours doesn't work either. And also you'd probably clean up the wiring a little bit. We're going to go ahead and install our filter. Since there's plenty of ATF on the ground, we're just going to go ahead and use that as a lube. Make sure again you don't have any debris in here. Make sure you got a tab right there that pushes the filter into the pan. Something like that. It's got a little recess in the pan, or not in the pan, but in the filter. It's got a recess for that tab, so you know you got it in the right place. And all that really does it helps the filter push up against the pan. The problem that sucks with these filters though is that they actually feed from the top of them. Granted, the transmission's upside down, so you know what top is now bottom. Some people just overfill their transmissions by about 1/2 quart to help combat that. So until I get there, we're just going to run the stock filter. Got that cleaned up. Go ahead and throw our new pan gasket on. We're going to skip, I think we're going to skip these 2 bolts right here because that's where the shifter linkage goes. On a factory shifter, they would go at these 2 bolts, but the aftermarket one gets moved up just a couple. Actually, it just gets moved up 1. All right, we're ready for the pan. And I think we'll go ahead and put this one in. Well, there's a transmission. It's got the new seals in it. It's a little dirty from, you know, being flipped over and transmission fluid leaking everywhere. So I got a nice mess I get to clean up now. So yeah, hopefully I'll post something tomorrow and see what's up.